The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, Episode 4. We are now in the latter half of this series. Hopefully there's another season, but I can't really tell you if there's going to be another one yet or not. We're just going to have to wait and see of how the season goes, really, because right now they have not made that clear. But I do hope there's more, but we'll just have to wait and see. But this is episode 4. We're now in the later half. Let's get in this episode. A very dialogue-heavy episode, and I think it's probably one of the best episodes of the season. I think I like episode 1 the most, but I think this is definitely coming in real close to episode 1, and it's just mostly dialogue because you're finally getting this reuniting episode with Michonne and Rick, like a proper reuniting between these two characters, because they've had these very small interactions since they reunited, but they've been very secret about it and stuff because they're stuck in the CRM. But now this episode gives us everything. So Rick and Michonne, we get a little flash of this like little room area that's kind of lighting up in the storm that we saw at the end of the last episode. Then we cut to the scene of Michonne literally pulling Rick out of the helicopter that they're in. And we finally get to see where they landed. So they were not very far above a bunch of water. So they literally just landed in some water, and as the helicopter flew off in the storm. So I figured it had to be something pretty safe to land in, because they're not just going to jump out of the helicopter for no reason. So they landed in some water, and they washed ashore a very nice building. A building that has the specific room that we see a lot of the scenes in this whole area that's very well kept. And it's really nice. It's automated. It's got like this whole automated speaking system talking to them when they come in. You know, the lights and whatnot come on for them. But they make their way up on shore, and then they get into the building, and now it's just Rick and Michonne, and the helicopter's gone. It flew off supposedly, and it's just them for now. You know, obviously Rick wants to make his way back still. He's still in this weird mindset of like, holy shit, we need to get back. We cannot keep ourselves away from the CRM. They're going to come for us and whatnot. You know, and Michonne obviously pulled him out because we need to talk. We need to discuss this. And that is something that she does bring up to Rick. It's like, we need to slow down a little bit. We need to talk this shit through, because you literally just told me that what we had is broken. And you're saying all this random weird shit that doesn't make sense anymore. And it's like, he's trying to push her away so she would leave, because he really wants her to go, but he wants to stay behind to make sure she's safe. And she's not having that. So they get settled in a little bit. And again, this area that they're in, this room specifically they're in, is very well kept. Like it's incredibly well kept. It's like no one ever touched it in the apocalypse. The apocalypse has not made its way, at least to this one specific room of this building. And it's kind of crazy. I mean, I initially thought it was like part of the Civic Republic itself. And later on we do learn, I think it's just kind of a building out there kept separately. Another whole group was taking care of it, but I thought it was part of the CRM at some point, because it was so well kept, and it didn't even feel like it was part of the part of the apocalypse. So they get settled, and Rick immediately jumps to, he wants to call the CRM. He wants to call them in with their little radio thing. He lost his, but Michonne has hers with her that she had with her on the mission. So Rick keeps asking her to give it to him, because he wants to call them back. He wants to call them back so they can get out of there and head out. He wants to go back to the CRM and then, eventually probably try to get Michonne to leave again. That's his whole thing right now, is he wants to stay behind for her. That is what he's telling her. So that is the conflict. Rick is starting to become very, very afraid, it seems, and very, very complacent with just like, I'm in the CRM and this is what I have to deal with now. We cannot escape them, and they are a problem that are just not going to go away. And that is something that Michonne is just straight up not having. She's not having it. So as they're talking, the revelation comes about that Rick has a son, and his name is Rick, or RJ. They call him RJ in the main series. Just kind of distinguishes it a little bit. Rick Jr., whatever. That's how they called him in the show. So he finally learns he has a son. So he has 2 kids now. He has Judith and, RJ, which RJ's his like actual son. Judith is, Shane's daughter technically, but it's Rick's kid. So he's got 2 kids waiting back at home. She's saying, I was pregnant when the bridge happened, but he's still reluctant to go. He doesn't want to go. He wants to stay behind to make sure she's safe. And that's kind of something he repeats throughout the episode. It's like that's kind of the only thing he really says. It's like, they're so dangerous. You know, Jadis knows everything. He does bring Jadis up to her that, like, she knows everything and she is going to harm and kill everybody that we know and love back at home in Alexandria. And that is something she has threatened. And she also tells Michonne that she has evidence back, you know, at the CRM. If they kill Jadis, that will be revealed to the CRM and they'll go to Alexandria then and kill him. I'm still kind of weird on it because you would think that the CRM already knows about where Alexandria is. They were flying helicopters like crazy all over that area. Michonne is in major disbelief because even after the revelation that he has another kid, he has a son back at home now, he still does not want to go home. He's reluctant to go, and he basically wants her to go and do exactly what he initially set her off to do with the canoe and everything in the letter. As reluctant as she is, and she doesn't want this, she gives him the little responder thing, whatever it is, to call the CRM. Eventually, Rick is going to either decide whether to use it or not, but at the moment she gives it to him. He doesn't use it at the moment, but we will see later what the decision is. And as they're kind of wrapping up that part of the conversation, which is only a small part, there's a lot more to go, they look out the window, and it's like daytime now, the sun is rising, and they look over at the building. It's like part of the building, it's kind of like wrapping around or something, and their helicopter that they were in has literally crashed into the building they're in right now. So they reveal that Michonne basically saved their life. Michonne saved their life by literally taking them and dropping them into the water. Their helicopter crashed in the storm, and it crashed and they would have died. So that's kind of interesting, but it also reveals that, like, holy shit, they think we're dead. They'll think we're dead now. The helicopter that we were in has crashed. They will think we are gone, and they will think we are dead. That is exactly what they wanted. Michonne's like, holy shit, we can go. We can go home. We can go home to our kids. This is perfect. This has been perfectly laid out for us in a perfect scenario. And Rick's not going home. He says, no, I'm not going home. And you begin to realize that Rick is incredibly serious about, he's stuck. He's incredibly stuck. And that is something we're going to have to figure out through this episode, is like, why in the hell is he so stubborn about this? Because of all the escape attempts. I mean, he cut off his own damn hand to try and get home, and now he is reluctant. He's reached this point now where he's changed. He doesn't want to go home now. He does, but there's something holding him back. As I said earlier, the conversation between Rick and Michonne continuously goes around and around a circle with Rick, where he's like, I need to stay behind to make sure you're safe. You know, I can change the CRM. I can go in there and I can change it. It can become better for the world, and I can protect you and Judith and RJ from here in the CRM while you go home. And that's kind of the only argument he ever brings up through the episode. And Michonne, she is just, she cannot believe the words that she's hearing, that he is just not willing to go with her. You know, he brought up all the issues, and she said, oh, we'll deal with it. Maybe we'll go kill Jadis and destroy her evidence and stuff. And that just didn't work. That wasn't enough. It comes down to this, and Michonne realizes that, like, she knows Rick. She knows Rick, and she knows he's not totally telling the truth and everything that he's thinking. He's not telling her everything that is on his mind. There is something there inside of him that is holding him back, because she knows him, and she knows this is not the man he would be. What did they do to him? What have they done to him mentally inside of his head? What have they done to him that is making him so reluctant? And I guess it's not really just Jadis or the threat. That is a big part of it, but there's also little things in his head that are just holding him back, and she's trying to figure out, what the hell is it that is holding this man back? Rick Grimes. What is holding him back from going home and seeing his family? They end their arguing. Michonne leaves the room, and she decides, I'm going to go home. I'm done. All right, it's over. You made your choice. You know what? I'll just go then. I'll just go. So she walks out. She pauses. She waits for a moment in the hallway. And it's this big scene of Rick and Michonne kind of waiting for a moment, seeing if each other will come or go back or whatnot. It's like, are we really making this decision? Are we really splitting up at this very moment? Is she going to go, and is Rick going to stay and call them back and, just go back to the CR? Is this where it ends? Is this where the story ends? And he opens the door and he goes out rushing towards Michonne. But as he rushes towards Michonne, we pan in that same scene to the window, and we got a CRM helicopter inbound. And this is going to reach another point of the episode that we've seen in the trailers. We've seen this bit in the trailers, and I didn't really know what point in the series this would happen, but now we do know. The CRM helicopter comes up to the crashed helicopter in the window, so they're very much aware that this helicopter has crashed, and as we know with the CRM, they need to deal with their remnants. They cannot let any evidence be known of their existence. So they literally bring in a helicopter, not to go after Rick and Michonne specifically. I don't think they really know that they're out there, at least yet. But they go in and they blow up the helicopter that's already crashed and burning in the building, because they need to make sure that this thing is destroyed and there is no evidence of their existence. So as they do that, it creates an issue with the building. When they're destroying the helicopter, they also go ahead and destroy the building essentially as well. They blow up a big chunk of the building, and now the entire building that they're in is literally collapsing and crumbling around them. But of course, for the episode, look, it's a little unrealistic. It's really silly to me, but it takes the entire episode, and it takes all day for this building to collapse. It's really slow, but it does start to happen, and it's a little silly at points. It takes forever. It takes forever for this building to fall. But it starts to crumble. The glass that she's looking at walkers. Michonne's looking at a bunch of walkers through some glass. The glass shatters. Rick comes in, saves her, and they start to run. So as they're running through the building, they see different rooms. They see a room with some sort of doctor in some sort of facility, and it looks like they were doing some sort of weird work. Maybe trying to figure out the cure or something. I don't know. We've seen lots of different people probably trying to figure that out. Just trying to figure out what the hell actually was going on in the apocalypse. But we're seeing little glimpses of stuff that was kind of going on here in this big hospital facility that they're in. And as we do that, we enter this room where there is this dead, I don't know if it was a walker. I think it was actually just a dead person. They weren't a walker. And they're on the ground, and it was this big note from the person that was running the facility after the apocalypse, and it's saying how they built up this facility, this community in this building, and they tried to make their way into the apocalypse, but ultimately they failed. And it was just another failed attempt in the apocalypse of a group that just didn't make it. So this random group in this building, they tried to make it, they tried to figure out things on their own, and ultimately it just failed. And that's kind of why the building's all kind of kept neat. And that's why that room is all neat and everything. It was all set up and done probably several years into the apocalypse, until it all just fell and collapsed eventually and everybody died. And that's kind of how it goes with a lot of those types of stories in The Walking Dead, is just it all just ends. It all just ends and doesn't really get anywhere. And that is a story I would love to see, though. Someone tackling the Cure storyline. I think that would be cool. But that once again sets up another argument between Rick and Michonne as they're trying to, get out of the area, get away from the walkers. Rick is determined that signing up for the CRM and joining the CRM is exactly what I need to do to make sure they're safe. And now he's getting very, very hesitant. He's getting very, very pushy, and he's telling her, maybe you shouldn't have come, and maybe you should have stayed with Judith and RJ, and you should have just left me. And Michonne just knows that's not some stuff that Rick would tell me. That is not the shit you would talk to me about. That is not how you would talk to me. And again, throughout the episode, it's the same type of conversation, but it gets more and more heated. She's trying to figure out what the hell that one little thing is in Rick that is holding him back, and she's digging and digging, and she is just having a rough time with it. So obviously they are in the scenario of getting away from a bunch of walkers that are now entering the building. It's always funny to me how walkers get the upper hand on them sometimes because of just how long they've been dealing with them. But I know it's a zombie show. They're going to make some drama and some tension with some walkers. They also make some funny moments too. You got Rick and Michonne here killing the same walker, and they're like, I had this. As they're going through a stairwell, there is this big chandelier on the ceiling, and because the building is crumbling at its very slow pace, The chandelier crashes upon them at the very right time that they're underneath it, of course, and it crashes down on Michonne. Now, it doesn't actually injure Michonne, it just traps her, so they need to get the thing off of her legs. As they're doing that, Michonne and Rick are fighting together, kind of realizing that Rick is still fighting for Michonne very heavily. He's not going to let her go. He's not going to let her die. And it's just this little team building, relationship building scene here with them in the apocalypse. Like, this is Rick and Michonne. This is what we want to see. And this is what could be if Rick finally decides and realizes that maybe he should go with Michonne. So they make it out and they realize that there's a part of the building that's not starting to collapse just yet, and that is where they were in the room that they were at. So they run back to the room and they're back in the room. It's baffling to me how slow this building collapses. It's so strange, but I guess it's just slowly buckling away. It's weird. So as they enter the room, it's this weird tension that these two people still love each other extremely much. Like they really, really love each other and they want to figure it out, but there's just so many issues involved. And it reaches this point where Rick and Michonne, look, the building is literally collapsing in on them, but they take some time to, get a little comfortable, catch up even a little more. And it's funny to me because the entire building, as they're doing this, is crumbling around them. As they're in bed, all that stuff, the building is literally just crumbling and falling apart. That's the funny part to me. It's just, this is the slowest crumbling building I have ever seen. So they catch up a little bit more. They talk about RJ. And it's like, this is what we want to see with Rick and Michonne back together. You want to see them go back home and live their life together. And then it gets back into the same conversation again. He wants to change the CRM. He tells her that if I can get into the CRM, I can change things. I can change it for the better, for the world. And she once again brings up, you're still lying. You're lying to me. There is something about what you're telling me that is just not totally truthful, of why you are so determined and you've given up so badly. You just want to stay behind. So as they're kind of getting up, Rick does realize like the scar on her back, like the X scar from when that woman that she led into Alexandria, I believe it was like season 10 or something. They showed it in season 10. It was like a flashback episode. It was when her good friend returned and she was actually like a psychopath and she had like a bunch of kids that she had to kill and stuff. It's been a little while since I've seen that, but I know it was like a really crazy thing. The woman kidnapped Judith. She had to go get Judith back, and it was a big crazy event with Daryl. Daryl also had like a similar scar. They were like branding them and stuff. It was really weird, freaky stuff. And there was like a whole weird flashback episode. But she tells Rick about that scenario, what happened, why she has that specific scar, and then we get to see Rick's hand. We're obviously not going to see his hand all too much. His stub basically at this point is cut off left hand because it's going to be CG'd off. They're not going to do it all the time. I get it. I understand that. But we do get to see it here. His cut off hand. He's only got his one hand now. And it's just showing us the lengths he went to get away and get home. And it just shows the comparison from him then to him now. And it's weird. It's very, very weird. So as they're getting up, the building conveniently decides to start rumbling again, and they realize they need to get the hell out of there. The building is literally falling apart, and you got chunks falling on the floor. So as they realize that, Michonne's like, no, we're not going to go just yet. We're going to figure out where the hell we are going to go right now, and I'm not going until we figure it out, because they need to get out, but they haven't figured out their situation yet. They don't know if, Rick wants to drag them back to the CRM or if Rick wants to go with her. They haven't figured it out yet. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to figure it out right now. So Michonne mentions like, oh yeah, well, by the way, I spent a year in like a hotel or whatever, a building with Nat, recovering from the CRM attack that almost killed us. And I don't even know if Judith is okay. I lied to you. I said she was fine, but really it's been over a year and I don't even know if Judith is okay. I don't know if RJ is okay. I don't know if everyone's okay. And I think actually between that time, they're probably dealing with the whole Commonwealth thing right now. If I just had to take a guess, like that's probably why she hasn't answered the radios. That's why Judith hasn't answered the radios and whatnot. It's because she's dealing with all the Commonwealth stuff with, the white stormtroopers over there in The Walking Dead final season. That's just my guess, but that's kind of like an interesting tie-in. But she doesn't know what's going on with Judith right now, and she doesn't know if she's fine. She mentions that to Rick. She's once again asking him, what did they do to you? Because she's very clearly seeing they did something to him. They did something in there to him that has broken him to the point where he doesn't even want to go home to his family. And can I just say that Andrew Lincoln is just phenomenal? He is incredible. His acting in the main show, the main series was incredible, and it is incredible here. It is phenomenal. At least I think it is. And I'm just amazed at just how emotional he can get himself in these scenes. He starts to talk about Carl. And I'm so glad that they talk about Carl. I think the biggest mistake the main series did make, at least of killing people off, is killing Carl. I know Scott Gimple is behind this show too. I know. He's made some mistakes for sure in the series. I think he's doing okay with this one. But that one of his biggest mistakes is killing off Carl. I don't think they should have done it. But at least with doing that, we get to see some really emotional scenes with Rick. And I think this is a really great scene with Rick. And they say, she asked him, what did they do to you? He says, Carl. They took Carl. And it's like, wait, what? He says, I meet up with Carl in my dreams. And then we cut to a scene. This is actually a scene we've seen in The Walking Dead. I think it was like the end of season 8, where it's like the end of the Savior arc, and we got this little flashback scene with Rick and Carl just walking on a farm. He's in his officer outfit. And they do cut to that little scene there for a moment. And then he also mentions he dreams of Michonne too. But the CRM, as he's been in the CRM and he's slowly lost hope and whatnot, he doesn't see them anymore in his dreams. He doesn't see them. He doesn't dream of them anymore. And it's making him lose them again. And he doesn't want to go back home to have that potential of actually seeing it again and actually seeing that loss again. He doesn't want to see that loss again. But, if he's away and he's protecting the world with the CRM, if he can change the CRM for the better, he can think that they're protecting the world and his family. He can think he's protecting his family without ever really knowing if they're actually out there or not. He could just pretend that he is. If they're not okay, he can think that they are. And he doesn't want to go back home and face the reality that I could lose them. He doesn't want to go back home and face the reality that he could lose them, and he doesn't want to see it again. And that's kind of what he mentions there. And Carl's a big one. Like he lost the image of Carl while dreaming. Like he's not seeing Carl anymore. He's not thinking of them in his dreams anymore. It's slowly fading from him, and it's making him just lose it. He's literally breaking down because of it. So as we saw last week, Michonne actually did meet up with the artist who is scratching in all the images and the drawings of the characters that we know in the phones that Rick had seen and sent and basically gotten to Michonne in a way. The drawings, she got a drawing of Carl, because I don't think the guy ever got Rick to do a drawing of Carl, but Michonne got one. Michonne got one from that artist, and she got it scratched into one of the cell phones, and he gives it to Rick. And this is kind of the big moment of like, this is the big realization moment. What would Carl want you to do? They show another flashback of Carl, and dude, it just sucks that Carl was killed off, man. It is I know people get mad about Glenn dying. I think that one still serves a big purpose of the story, and it makes sense. I know the comics did it too, but Carl dying, it was a mistake. It sucks that they did it. They could have done so much with Carl. I mean, Rick leaving the main show would have, felt a little better too with Carl still being around, but he wasn't. And we come to this point where it's like, what would Carl want you to do? What would Carl think of this? He says, we're gonna go home, Rick. We're gonna go home. And it comes to this moment where you can realize that Rick has made up his mind. He's still reluctant. He still has his worries, but he's confessed his true reasonings and his total thinking to Michonne. He's like, okay, we're going to go. So I don't know how much time can pass here with this building collapsing, but it almost looks like the next day, almost the next morning, and the building is still collapsing around them. They're all ready to go. Rick is literally in a completely different outfit, and they're ready to go and, slash through some walkers and get out of the building. So Rick is out of his CRM outfit. They slash through some walkers. You get some cool scenes with Rick and Michonne again. Just old school Rick and Michonne killing some walkers. The stuff you want to see. It's all happy. It's great. He's made up his mind. He's going home. He's going to go home. They get out of the building. They find a car, and luckily it's like an electric car, and it's ready to go. It's got a bunch of gasoline in the back too as backup. They're good. They're ready to go. The building behind them, perfectly timed, collapses as they run out of the building because it was waiting for them. That was pretty clear through the episode that this building was just waiting for them. And then they drive off. Happily ever after, they go home. Right? So it ended really, really happy. The unfortunate thing is, in a way, unfortunately, I love that there's 2 more episodes to watch. The bad thing is there's 2 more episodes to watch. And, it ended way too happy. I think it ended way, way too happy. And we see next week that it's not nearly done. So I don't know how much next week is really going to be Rick and Michonne out on their own still, but I do know that there were some teasers in the trailers. This isn't really spoiling much. In the trailers, before the season even premiered, Jadis was in a vehicle in a chase and, like crashing against another car. And I very much believe that is Rick and Michonne. Now, it only showed Michonne in the trailer, but now we know Rick is with her. So I think Jadis is going to be the one going after them next episode and into the finale, maybe. I could see maybe Jadis dying in this series. I don't exactly know. We all want to see it end happily, but I don't know what they got planned. But I think this was a phenomenal episode. Danai, Gurira, Andrew Lincoln just killed it. They really did. And they're the only ones in this episode. They really did. I think Danai Gurira was the one who wrote the episode too. She almost basically directed the episode. She was show running this episode, really. So it was kind of her episode, and I think she did a good job. I think it was really, really good, and it was good to see the full catch up with these 2 characters and to get into each other's heads and to see what they're thinking as of right now, because it's been so long. And now we got an idea of where our characters are thinking, what they think, and their paths forward now, what they plan on doing. I don't know how much more the CRM is going to be involved, though. I think we are going to make our way back to the CRM. I don't know if these 2 will be back there or not. I don't know yet. But I do know we're going to see them again. We're going to see Major General Beale again, too, because we've seen him in different scenes. So we're going to see him again, too. We're not done with this whole story yet. But, man, I think this was a great episode. I really, really do. Probably the second best episode. I just love that first episode, though. The beginning, the whole blow up of this new series. Just everything, just all of it, all at us at once. I love that first episode. But I think this is, just incredible. It was a really great episode, and it was mostly just a dialogue episode of catching up between these 2 characters, and I just loved it. I really did. I'm hoping their journeys aren't over soon, but we're gonna have to wait the next 2 episodes to see that.